Welcome to Take You in Action PA, episode 32. I'm Calvin, I'm your host, and we've got Regina with us. How you doing, Regina?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good to see you again. It's been like, what, a month? Where have you been?
Oh my God, everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's good to have you back now, especially since we've been trying to get this episode to happen for a month, something like that.
Finally.
Yeah. And as it so happens, it's good that we have you on today because we have excuse me, the Rage Against the War Machine rally that we're trying to push out today. There's a nationwide cross-party effort with us and the People's Party to get the word out about the February 19th rally in DC. We're meeting at 12:30 at the Lincoln Memorial. Regina and I will both be there, and many others from the caucus as well. So if you are in the caucus and you are interested in going, particularly if you are looking to get in on the carpool we're doing, then reach out to Regina or me and we'll get you plugged in. You have anything to
add? No, just everybody please try to come out if you can. We have a lot of great speakers. It's going to be a very powerful movement, and you can't call yourself a true hippie if you don't go to at least one anti-war protest in your life. So you guys got to come out.
Yeah, it's I was actually having a conversation about it earlier. It's like I just listed all the parties I could think of on the left just in the US, like Communist Party, like they're not actually a part. These guys aren't a party, but like the Democratic Socialists of America are almost a party. There's like a Working Families Party, Forward Party, all these guys, none of them apparently care. It's only the People's Party that cares. So we might disagree on a lot of things, but
according to the Pittsburgh Socialist, I guess we'll just call them group, because me and Ross went to hand out flyers there was actually another rally this past weekend, and we went there, and the leader of the socialist group told me to my face that we libertarians and them socialists don't see eye to eye on any issues. So they basically admitted that they're pro-war, guys. And they're not pro-plant medicine. They hate plant medicine. They don't want their free weed. They don't want their free psych. So you heard it first, right from their mouth.
It really is disappointing. I don't know what to expect.
That's a whole nother podcast. We're gonna have to do a whole nother podcast on that one.
Yeah, by the way, I like your new Twitter handle.
Thank you. I figured I needed something a little easier to find with the LPPA. So
perfect. All right. Well, let's bring on our guest. You know him, you love him. He's been on an episode before. I met him back when he came to his first Libertarian Party of Philadelphia meeting. He's since gone on to bigger and better things. Got started Don't Tread on Philly and has been a great activist in the liberty space. Let's bring on Torren Danowski. How you doing, Torren?
Hey, what's up, guys? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So what's been going on since we had you last time? What have you been doing?
Let's see. It was the beginning of December, I think. It's not a whole lot. It was just the holidays, just doing a lot of traveling, trying to wrap up year-end stuff at work, which was, let's just say fun. I was doing some work on Christmas Eve. When you're working corporate, you're not supposed to work on Christmas Eve. That sucks. But no, it was the rest of the time was great. Hung out with some family down in North Carolina. I was up in Vermont this past weekend to just kind of get away and smell some nature. I was about a 5-minute walk from the border of fascism up in Canada. I could literally walk to the border and probably get shot for trying to cross it, but didn't do that. Just hung out, tried to, did some hiking, got some great beer, took the dogs for some walks. Speaking of dogs, I think my younger one just took a shit down here in the basement. So yeah.
All right. Well, that sucks.
Yep.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I was doing some research on the border a little while back, and I read that in Canada there's this town that is well, it's evenly split between the U.S. and Canada. I even saw a picture of the inside of the town's public library,
Hmm.
and there was like a, I don't know, like a white line or something, just dividing the library, U.S. Canada border, right in the middle. And there's literally like a studying table surrounded by, chairs. You just go to read a book or whatever, and it goes underneath this table, just go all the way to the other side of the library. Now, how they did that during COVID, I have no idea. Like in theory, you're supposed to just report to the border station nearest you when you cross the border. But if you live in that town, like, what are you actually doing?
That's odd. I mean, when you go up there, like it was so odd because you drive up, I think it's I-89 in Vermont, like north of Burlington, and it ends up you're just driving on a deserted highway. And like maybe every 5 minutes you'll pass another car that was like leaving Canada or going up to Canada. It's just so odd. I mean, I'm fairly agnostic when it comes to the borders debate. I don't think I know enough of it. I'm sympathetic. I'm sympathetic to wanting, allowing people to have free access and freedom of movement. I'm also sympathetic to the fact that our welfare state sucks. And so just letting people cross indiscriminately is not a great thing either. But like borders are such a weird thing. Like it's so strange. Like go all the way up there and be like, oh, I don't have my passport on me. I'm not vaxxed. Although I don't think Canada actually technically cares anymore. The US still does. But it's like I couldn't just cross the border. Like I couldn't even just like walk up there and say like, hey, the US is Nazi white supremacists, give me asylum. They wouldn't do it. Like I just wouldn't be allowed to cross the border
Well,
no
there
matter
are
what.
there are some states like Michigan that you can just get an advanced license, and that's good enough to cross into Canada. I don't know how many other states do that, but I know with Michigan at least, and it's probably the same with Ontario. Then that they just let you do that without getting a passport.
Yeah, there's like a passport card you could get or something too. I mean,
Yeah,
I know back in
I
the
did get
day, I know back in the day, like my parents, they lived in, my parents grew up in Northeast Ohio and they would go on like weekend benders up in Toronto because all they had to do was show their driver's license.
Yeah, exactly.
Not anymore.
That's how the Michiganders get their beer when they're 18 to 20.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it used to be easy. Now, who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, so you both know why you're here. We wanted to address the topic that we were hoping to discuss last month. We're doing a deeper dive into the world of psychedelics, which I know nothing about. So this will mostly be me listening and asking questions, but I don't know how many times you two have actually talked, if ever. So I'm really curious to hear what you two have to say on it. So how do you want to start this off?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was talking to Regina right when you had gotten up before the show started. I think this is the first time we've actually spoken. We've texted back and forth and been in the group chats quite a bit, but I don't think we've actually spoken. I mean, I know.
Yeah, it's funny. I talk with you both so much, it just gets to the point where like I assume everybody knows everyone, but that's not always true.
Yeah, me going to the first like LP Christmas parties this year, it was so weird. It's like I know we've interacted for literally like 6 months, but like finally seeing somebody face to face or even like screen to screen in this case, it's like so like, oh, you're real.
Yeah, just wait until March. It'll be even crazier, I promise you.
I'm so excited.
Yep.
So excited.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I know you're going, but you better go, Torren. You better go.
I'm going to do my best to make it. I'm in a little bit of a different situation life-wise right now with 2 dogs and a few other things going on, but I don't know if I can even make it or stay the entire weekend, but it's only an hour away. So
I've got 3 pets and I'm staying the whole weekend. So I'm sure you can make it.
You also have a wife.
That is true. She has generously agreed to watch the pets.
So, yeah. But yeah, it's a great time. The convention's a great time. I probably should plug that as well. We got that coming up.
Yes, that is true. We do. I've been pasting it in the description of every episode, which I will continue to do through that first weekend of March when we're having it. It's March 3rd through 5th in Reading, PA. I don't have to keep like spelling out the link or typing it in the comments anymore because we have it in the episode description, but it's there. Go check it out. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is at the Rage Against War rally, Scott Horton and Jimmy Dore will be speaking.
Nice.
And at the PA convention, we got Dave Smith, Hannah Cox, Shane Hazel, Dennis Porter, and many others. So
Yeah,
you don't want
Maj
to
is
miss
gonna
either
be
of them.
there.
Yeah, I will be there starting sometime Friday through maybe afternoon to evening Sunday for both the DC thing and the convention as of now.
Cool. But yeah, psychedelics.
Yep.
I guess, Regina, why don't you start? You have way more probably knowledge and experience with that than I do. I know you're specifically involved with a group in Pittsburgh. I have very little knowledge of this stuff, but I'm learning. So yeah, what's your experience with it?
Yeah, I guess we can give. I know I gave. I think I gave a more detailed version, but I'll give like the Reader's Digest. For this, or anyone's not listening. But so I discovered psychedelics right at the beginning of the pandemic, and mostly DMT. I've tried acid once, some psilocybin trips, but DMT is kind of my thing. And I just remember how much it like humbled me and really just made me go, oh, I know nothing about anything, about how anything works ever, like none of it. Now my beginning trials was a little tricky because I was on a pretty hefty cocktail of different SSRIs and SNRIs for anxiety, depression, the whole 9 yards. And I got to a point with them where I realized that they weren't doing anything for me other than keeping the brain zaps away. And for those who don't know what that is, because of how dependent these pills make your brain and your body, if you miss a dosage I'm talking with me, if I didn't take my dosage within 10-15 minutes, I knew, because it's literally like a small electrical zap. Like it felt like it was right here and like went all through the back of my like head down into my neck. And all I could really do if I couldn't get to a pharmacy or if my prescription was up and I had to wait for like a doctor to do an emergency prescription, you just lay in a dark room and you're just in pain and you're miserable and everything is like light and sounds and scents are like amplified. It's just not a great time. And I realized that they weren't doing it. They weren't even keeping me like semi happy, let alone, not anxious. And I had kicked like right before the pandemic, I had a lot of life changes. I had some really, I don't want to say traumatic, but just very jarring life things that happened. And I, was basically alone again. And then the pandemic hit and it was literally like, well, now not only, was I alone in the sense of like the people that had been around me for a very long time, I couldn't go see anybody. So we weren't supposed to go anywhere, but I went plenty of places inside my apartment, thanks to psychedelics. And for me, it's just, they've given my life so much meaning in how they restructured my thinking. And the most shocking thing for me is I actually used DMT to get off of my SSRIs. Now, I want to note that I am not encouraging you to just throw your prescription medication out the window. Like, I did talk to my doctor. Luckily, my doctor is very pro plant medicine. So I was lucky and able to be open and honest with him. And I tapered off. I'm a medical marijuana patient. I use that to help too. But the thing that shocked me is this sounds kind of crazy. Anyone who knows what DMT, how it works, but I actually microdosed with DMT, and I had no brain zaps. I had no like any sort of counter reaction, whereas like normally these things, and I was able to get off all of them. And I can't tell you how much more in tune with my body I am, and just able to live a full life. So I really do owe them for giving me basically a whole new start to start my life over at 30.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that really doesn't get a lot of coverage about the pandemic, just the mental health impacts that it had on everyone.
Yeah.
We still don't know. Like, that's the scariest thing with all of this. I mean, there's plenty of topics there that we can get into another day, but I am dreading 20 years from now when those studies come out, when we see those people emerging into society, and on both sides. Like, don't get me wrong, like, too far left, too far right, too far into this psyop, too far into denying the psyop, like all of it's dangerous. But that's what happened. It drew, like, we really lost the gray area, and we drew a hard line in the sand, and we have no idea the repercussions. I can't wait for the Netflix documentary, so I hope I get to be in one.
Yeah. And like, imagine if like you went to school or even college and then you just
Oh my
lost
God.
everything for 2 years like that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I was done all that. I don't know how I would have handled it if that was me.
I mean, I think I'm most worried about the kids,
Yes.
because their brains are still developing and they're social. I mean, and it doesn't matter what the age. I mean, anywhere from the infants at the time to the toddlers to the high school kids, like their brains are still developing, and we're social animals. We're tribal. We need other people, and essentially, I mean, you heard stories of like parents like quarantining their kids, and this is disgusting. I mean, and that's what got me at the end of the day involved with sort of speaking out and activism against the COVID measures in general, is all mental health. My story is I've dealt with some different mental health issues for a long time. Started experiencing some anxiety when I was in high school, morphed into some depression at the later years of high school and into college. Had a brief period of time where I found a lot of relief from that. And then went through some stuff in life. I was a missionary, Christian missionary, and went through some, I won't get into it, but just abuse of power, spiritual abuse, emotional abuse by, leaders of our mission group. And like mentally, I just, I was young at that time. I was 22, 23. And, it was, the saying goes, your brain's not fully developed until you're like 25. And so that did a number on me. And like over the years, like my ability, like I'm just now starting to kind of learn everything that kind of happened. Like my ability to respond to situations that like felt like what happened when I was a missionary, anything that felt just a little bit like that, my brain would respond in the same way, even if it had nothing to do with it. My brain would just go into this like shutdown mode or this freak out mode. And like pre-pandemic, I was starting to learn some of that a little bit, and was realizing like, oh man, I need people. I need to be around community. I need to be around people. And then all of a sudden, the city of Philadelphia is telling me, it's illegal. It's illegal for you to even, speak with anybody. And I'm like, no, that cannot be the case. Like I live alone, not by choice, but because I just went through a rough patch, went through a separation, all kinds of things. Like, no, you can't tell me that I have to live alone and be alone until you say otherwise. And so I had to like go and, talk to my friends and be like, guys, we need community. We need people. And eventually, started finding that a little bit, but from the get go, I'm like, this is terrible for mental health. Again, we're social animals. We need that interaction. And if we don't get it, our brains get starved of it and we suffer. And so to kind of tie this back in, and I can give a little bit of my story. I mean, I shared quite a bit of it the last time I was on last month, but I struggled with gender dysphoria as well, as my other mental health struggles, and had decided, I had decided to transition, and I had come out and was publicly at least going by Audrey for quite a while. Most of the Mises Caucus knew me as that. Most of the Mises Caucus met me as that. But I had done a little bit of experience with ketamine through one of the online ketamine providers, and that was actually really good. It helped with some of the mental health stuff, just the depression and the anxiety. I don't feel like it never really treated the core. It never really helped me get to the core of what was going on. And really, my gender dysphoria and the decision to transition was very much the same. I used this analogy last time I was on the show, and I said, gender dysphoria is like a broken leg. It's a traumatic, like something happened and you broke a limb, and transitioning is just like the morphine that treats the pain for the limb. It doesn't actually treat the limb. It doesn't show you what's wrong. It's not like it's setting the limb. It's not, putting a plate on the limb. It's just treating the pain. So it can feel great. And in fact, it just kind of numbs it. You don't feel the pain anymore, but you're still walking around with a broken limb. And so I had done the ketamine, and then at one point, I was like, man, something's not working. And obviously I was on SSRIs, SNRIs, other things. Those weren't working. I was sick of taking them. They didn't really make me feel good or give me energy to do the things that I wanted to do. So I said, well, let me try something else. And so just being connected to the libertarians, you can get connected to people who are, in the psychedelic movement doing, who, will talk about things like psilocybin or LSD or DMT and all of these things. And, the most common thread, I mean, yeah, you have your sort of libertine type folks that are just like, yeah, we're hippies, let's go drop acid all the time. And then you have your people that are like, actually, this is a tool. Like, this is a powerful, powerful tool for mental health and healing. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say I do psychedelics with frequency. I don't really want to. I kind of want to live a mostly sort of clean, minus my like enjoyment of alcohol. I would, like to live a more straight edge kind of lifestyle. But they are a tool that I think is useful. And I had an experience where, I had been exploring some thoughts about like, what is at the root cause of gender dysphoria? What's at the root cause of my anxiety, my depression? And I had been toying around with this idea of like self-hatred, self-rejection, and like, how could I overcome that? Is that really the problem? What's going on? And then one day did a therapeutic session with psilocybin, and everything just started kind of piecing together. It was like I was able to kind of take a step back and outside of my emotions, outside of my thought patterns, and just kind of be like, oh, wait, hold on a second. I see what's going on here with the dysphoria, with the broken leg. Like, yeah, I've got all this pent up like self-hatred from things that went on in the past. Took unnecessary guilt and blame from, the abuse that I had gone through as a missionary, and things just started kind of piecing together. It's like during that, one session, it was like I finally like reconnected with like the good parts of my time as a missionary, the good parts, the good memories I'd had over the past decade. And those weren't like buried underneath the difficulty that I had. And so it was like at that point where as I started kind of, sobering up and, just coming back to normal reality, it's like everything just started to kind of piece together and make sense. I'm like, man, if I don't hate myself, if I have no reason to hate myself, then what am I doing? Why am I trying to become something that I'm not? Like, there's plenty to love about myself without, taking hormones, without taking, psychoactive medications. Like there's plenty good about me that I can try to, live for and improve and try to, love myself and love my neighbor better without all the stuff that I was using to numb myself.
Yeah, and this is great stuff, and this is exactly why I wanted to bring the two of you together, because I know each of you had powerful experiences of a unique kind when you had the psychedelics, and we've spoken individually about how it's changed your life. So I'm very curious to hear your reactions to that, Regina, and maybe you could tell us what comes to mind as you hear it.
Yeah, there's so much that resonates with me about that. Obviously I can't relate on the gender stuff, but a lot of people, I think, whether it's through questioning their gender, questioning their beliefs, or just trying to put on this facade of who they are, like at the root of it, it's pain. Like I think that's one of the greatest, like it's the biggest shame about these things being outlawed is they are a tool. Now granted, I also have the warning of psychedelics are a tool, but you can destroy the same house that you can build it with the same hammer.
Yep.
So you have to be very careful. Like it's like anything, you can abuse any substance, and psychedelics are not they're no different. So you do have to be very careful. I learned my lesson on New Year's Eve from chasing the dragon too much. That's my toxic trait is I'm like, rake me through the coals. Like I want to come out a different person. And they were like, okay, here you go. Like you took way too much of way too strong of I did a 6-gram trip of tidal wave, which I found out are like silo cup winners in strength, and it is not the same as a deep dive with DMT, let me tell you that, folks. But still, like I think it's important too that you brought up it's that stepping back. Like it's stepping back, like it sheds the ego and you just step back from all that emotional reaction and look at everything and go, oh, I react this way because this thing happened to me. Like that's the biggest thing I take from psychedelics. Like psychedelics don't make you like, it's not rose tinted glasses. It's not everything is wonderful. No bad things ever happen. Like we live in a utopia. Like that's not it. What they do is like, I probably feel, if not more, like just as much like emotion. Like I'm a very emotional person. Like I'm not afraid to admit that. Like I'm very emotional and I'm very empathetic. But what it's slowly helping me do, and I'm trying to do more with it, is to step back from that emotion and respond versus react and just go, okay, even not with myself, with other people. Like that's a big thing they've given me is I can interact with people who even at like the peak of their pain are just being, whether they're however they're lashing out, like at the core of it, again, like it's just a lot of it is trauma, a lot of it is like pain, and these pills just aren't doing it. Like all they made me do was sleep all day and be sad and not want to eat, and that just led me to being depressed. It led me to being nihilistic. Like I was very, another big thing they did for me is like I was very anti-God for a very long time, anti anything to do with the faith. I basically saw like life is meaningless. I was falling into that very, just everything had a negative connotation. And using psychedelics, like I personally, I feel closest to God when I use psychedelics for me. And that to look back and go, okay, you were angry at the invisible source, because that's the easiest finger to point. It's easy to point the finger at something that can't fight back, like God, like capitalism, like the patriarchy, like whatever invisible force that it's easier to point the finger at. And they allowed me, like psychedelics allowed me to have that mirror to look at myself. And I'm not saying all of it was like, oh, like great, like I'll never be like this again. You know, that's not how it works. But to slowly understand myself and be able to, I've had some trips where it's actually taken me exactly to the point of, I found out why I was scared of the dentist not that long ago for a long time. I always had a fear of like, I mean, literally would avoid going just for even cleanings, like, because I was so scared of the dentist. And then literally I had a DMT trip and I saw myself as a young child with my mother and my grandmother, and we were in a dentist's office, and I went, oh, that's why we're scared. And then now I can like do dental work and everything. Like, it's almost meditative now. It was like crazy. They're like, are you sure you're okay? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm just chilling.
Well, that if you asked your average Christian or libertarian or free marketeer, like, how did you come about to these ideas? I think very few of them would give that as the reason. So that's interesting. In fact, I think, you know, your average one of those, except maybe libertarians, might even say I wouldn't do that. So yeah, it's just very interesting how.
But again, it's a gateway. Like, that's what really it taught me about faith and about God, is like, oh, this is the relationship it's supposed to be. It's this, it's not, because what's crazy is like, even after like reestablishing my relationship with like the scriptures and everything, excuse me, it's, I went to church recently around Christmas time, and I was like thinking it was kind of going to be this very like, okay, I'm here, like, and it actually didn't give me the same connection that I have like when I'm, you know, by myself in my apartment and I'm like reading my Bible, or I'm, you know, praying, or in the morning when I wake up, or even just like thinking about it, like living it. And again, like, it doesn't have to be God. Like, you can call it whatever you want, you know, that, you know, whether it's the earth, whether it's the divine, like whatever you want to call it. Like, that's how I connect with it. And again, it gives you these lessons and this perspective. Like, it definitely, one of my most profound trips, like, really made me realize like how precious life is. Like, even if it's just you're in this meat suit and the lights go off one day and that's it, there's nothing else, you know, you're not reincarnated, you don't go somewhere, like, it it makes you appreciate every single moment. And I've never had anything else that's given me that other than psychedelics. And that's why, like, I'm pushing so hard for, not only for the mental health aspect, but just from the meaningful life aspect. Like it's your God-given right, and it's your First Amendment right to have access to these things that come from the earth that you partake in.
Yeah.
It's crazy that we still have to talk about this in terms of, you know,
yeah,
this should be legal.
Well, the poor man's history of it was that they synthesized all these compounds like LSD back in the 60s and 70s. And then, you know, everybody was taking them and nobody wanted to go to war in Vietnam. So Nixon nixed that.
Of course he did.
That's the poor man's history.
Is that what they used in MK Ultra?
Probably.
Yeah, so the government used it, but, you know, you're not allowed to have it on your own. It's just if the government doses it in your drink or something without you knowing,
yeah,
then it's okay.
Because if you take it and you do it and you come out with appreciation of life, you're not going to want to go overseas and fight wars. I mean, pretty much is what it is. But yeah, like I related with a lot of what you're saying, Regina, especially about like just the openness aspect of it. Like, especially if you go in like open-minded, it can open you up to thoughts and ideas and open you up to exploring things. But it can also have there's a double-edged sword aspect of it too, because if you go in expecting something or like set in stone and set on confirming your thoughts, it's going to do that too. Like, I mean, I've seen tons of anecdotes out there of other people like myself who were transitioning and then had an experience and stopped like immediately on the spot. But then there's also a few people out there that say, oh, well, LSD confirmed it. Like, no, I don't think it did. I think you were just not open at all. And you went in and you just dwelled on it. And it sort of just set things in stone even more. So it's like there's this aspect of like you kind of just have to go in being open and open to thinking, open to exploring, open to examining. And when you do, you can, like you said, you can take a step back. Like for me, the last time I did it will probably be the last time I do it for a while, because it wasn't a pleasant experience. And that was because I went in and it enhanced my emotions that I was feeling. Like it enhanced my anxiety. It enhanced the fear. And like it to a point of like, oh my gosh, this is horrific. Like what's going to happen? Like I knew I was physically safe, but I'm just like, am I going to just be stuck like this? Like what? But one of the cool things about it at the same time is like, if I just like took a deep breath, I could take a step back and be like, wait a second. These are feelings. These are emotions. My thoughts don't have to equal my emotions. Like I'm feeling this like in my body right now, this anxiety, this frustration, this edge. But like, hold on a second. I can think through this like kind of logically and make connections and, like you said, figure out why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And I'm kind of reading on the side right now. I'm reading a book called The Body Keeps the Score by, I think his name's Bessel van der Kerk. He's a Dutch immigrant to the U.S. And this was like a seminal writing on modern, psychology, physiology. And he spent his life studying PTSD patients, particularly from the Vietnam War and elsewhere. And his whole thesis, and the whole thesis of this book is that like traumas and pains are actually stored physically in the body. Like your physical body remembers your traumas and your pains. And what happens is if you go through a trauma and it doesn't resolve as it should, and like your body and your fight or flight responses don't return to normal like they should, then it's like digs new pathways in your brain. And so when you come across something that even just reminds you slightly of that event, your brain automatically goes down that pathway. And so you've got all of this stuff like all of your hurt, your pain, like your depression, your anxiety, your angry responses that come out of nowhere when you don't want them. It's all coming from how your body has remembered reactions in the past. And one of the beautiful things I think about psychedelics and what they're finding out and using it to treat things like PTSD is that it gives you an opportunity to kind of redig those pathways, because you can step back and sort of examine and be like, oh, wait a second. I just got really angry at something because it made me feel like this thing in the past. And I'm not really all that angry in it, but my body is like reacting and trying to protect itself and protect my mind from what happened in the past reoccurring. And like the biggest and like first step towards recovering from something like that is being able to recognize it. Because as soon as you recognize it and you see it as it's happening, you can start thinking different thoughts and be like, oh, wait, I know what's happening. And I mean, I've had that happen recently where it's like something comes up at work and it's like something I can't control. And it's just like, I can't figure it out. It's like a puzzle I can't figure out. And all of a sudden I feel my body just start like tensing up. Like, why is this happening? And it's like, oh, wait, it's not that I can't figure this out. It's not that there's something really wrong. It's just like, this is how my body has trained itself. And in some ways, how I've trained my body. I mean, I have some responsibility in it too, to respond to these things. But if I see that as it's happening, I can go and choose to do something differently. And I think that's the beautiful and potentially powerful thing about psychedelics is that, they're doing a lot of research. They're saying that it helps with neuroplasticity and that you can form new pathways in your brain. There isn't a whole lot of definitive stuff with that, but we at least know that it can help you take a step back and help you recognize things. And regardless of whether or not psychedelics actually help you dig new pathways, stepping back and recognizing is the first step to digging those new pathways.
Yeah. It puts that personal responsibility on you, because it's basically bringing all of you and all of your trauma, your emotions, everything to the surface. It's literally like a facial for the soul. And while you do have to be careful with psychedelics, especially in high doses, if you have certain mental illnesses that run in your family, like, if you have a history of schizophrenia, you need to be very careful, because it can really cause psychosis. But now, obviously, I'm just putting it out there. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But based on my experiences and talking with others, I truly feel like some of that psychosis is, it put the truth in front of you and people could not handle it and could not accept it. And I think that's where you see like these horror stories, unfortunately, where like people go insane, because it's like the thing about truth is that you cannot escape it. You can pat it, you can deny it, like, but at the end of the night, when it's you laying on the pillow, like you're laying your head on the pillow and it's nothing but you and your thoughts, like, that's why some people have to numb that down with, abusing certain substances, because it's like they just can't sit with themselves. And it's like psychedelics kind of put that in front of you and are like, we're going to look at it, and we're going to look at the blueprint, and we're going to look at some stuff that's highly uncomfortable. But like anything that makes you uncomfortable, that reward at the end of being free, because once you accept the truth and you start telling the truth and you start living the truth, it's, no matter what people say to you or what people try to do to you, like if you live in that and you align yourself to that highest good and to that ultimate truth, and living your truth, that's as free as you can get.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of going through a little bit of that right now, just personally, where it's like, I've spent so much time in my life numbing from things. I mean, and that's what the whole transition thing was all about for me. It was just numbing. Like, how can I numb myself and numb the struggles that I'm having so that, I can go do other things. It's like, how can I numb that? And so that I can do better at work? How can I numb it so that I can do, so I can be a better activist, so I can speak out more, do projects. And what I'm starting to learn, and what I think the psychedelics and other things too. I mean, I've kind of got a similar story with like regaining my faith and study of scripture and study of just the mind and knowledge in general. And like what I'm starting to see is like what I was actually doing. Like, yeah, sure, I accomplished some things, but I was leaving that broken leg untreated, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And so now I'm at this point where I'm like, personally, I feel like I'm almost like detoxing, like, because I'm deciding, hey, I'm not gonna numb myself anymore. Like the different things that I go and do to numb myself that are holding me back from actually being free and going accomplishing what I want to do and feel led to do, and things that would give my life meaning. Like, I'm not going to do those things anymore. And my body's just like freaking out about it. I mean, I think that's probably one of the reasons why the last time I did psychedelics, why it was so bad, because it's like I had stopped numbing myself and my body's just like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this without all of these little different tools that I usually use to just feel good. And, you know, it's still a process, and it's a long process, and I'm still in like this process of like trying to heal and trying to get back to a place where like I feel like I'm giving myself more to the world than I'm taking from it. But I feel like it's been this worthwhile process, because like I can sense in real time, it's like that limb's actually healing. It can hurt like hell right now because I'm not giving it the constant shots of morphine, but like I can sense that it's healing, and I'm able to think clearer, make better decisions. Or when I notice, just my responses, my body's responses to things going haywire, I'm like, oh wait, Torren, hold on a second. Like, you don't need to hate yourself here. You don't need to get frustrated with yourself. Chill out, take few deep breaths and go, maybe go do something else. Maybe go get on your bike, ride, maybe take the dogs for a walk, maybe find another project to work on, and like actually be a productive, whole human being who's actually present and not just like doing projects and doing different things. I mean, even all my like don't tread on Philly stuff that I did. I mean, even all of that was it was a numbing agent for me. It's what it was. It was just like I'm escaping the difficulties of my life by going out and being an activist against the COVID bullshit. But then as soon as the COVID stuff started dying down, it was like, okay, so what's left? Like I don't have anything. I don't have any purpose. I don't know, like, why couldn't I make this into something bigger? And the truth was, like, no, I didn't have to. Like I played my part, and now here in Philly, it's like somehow Don't Tread on Philly is still going. We had like 30 people at a get together the other night, and it's like, wow. Like actually, what I ended up doing was like giving all of these people here in Philly who feel alone, who feel forgotten, like I gave them a place to come together and get together and be humans. And like that's what I want to do. But I can't do that if I'm just constantly trying to escape pain. Um, I need to be able to be present for myself and for other people.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Knowing you the whole time, we talked about it at different points, but I had no idea. Um, it kind of makes some sense in retrospect. Like, discussion for another time, perhaps the inner details, but, even there were times in the past where like there were some difficult things going on my end. And, it's at times the stuff with the party and the Mises Caucus was just, an escape that allowed me to forget about those things for a while and feel like I was making a difference somewhere else without like fixing the root problems of what was going on with me. I mean, sometimes in fairness to myself, like there was nothing I could do, but at the same time, I didn't always take the time to like just sit back and process everything that was going on.
Yeah,
So
and that's not
that side of it.
Yeah, and it's not to say that these things aren't good. It's not to say that I would have been better off doing nothing. Um no, I think I was better off, doing the things that I was doing in the projects that I've been working on. Um well, most of the time I don't think transition was worth it. But uh other projects like Don't Tread on Philly or the bar I built downstairs here in my basement, like those things were worth it. They're totally worthwhile. But it's like it just like because I wasn't recognizing what was going on and what was driving the need to do these things, like that whatever that root issue was, just kept simmering and in some ways I think got worse. And then eventually, I mean, I think in some ways, I mean, that's kind of the root cause of burnout in life. You get burnt out at your job, you get burnt out in relationships, you get burnt out with the church. Why? Because it's like you're using these things and you're using these different tools and these different projects for something it wasn't meant for. It's meant for something that you do give yourself to. But if you're looking at these things to give your life some sort of purpose or meaning, or even, I mean, of course they're going to give it some purpose and some meaning, but if you're looking at it to give it some sort of escape, to heal something else, it's never going to do it. And then you get burnt out because it's like, oh, well, it's not providing what I wanted it to. So I'm kind of tired and I'm worn out and I'm done. And yeah, I think the past, I'd say the past like 6 months of my life has probably been probably been some of the worst burnout I've experienced. But at the same time, I think thanks to psychedelics, thanks to, getting help from a counselor, getting help from, spiritual advisors and things like that. It's like I've been working on the stuff underneath too. So it's almost like I feel like my body's kind of like starting to purge all of the bullshit that I put into it, and all the bullshit reactions, bullshit responses. My body's like, okay, we're going to get rid of this now. And then in the future, we're going to be able to step back into projects and step back into things as a whole, healthy, present human being. And yeah, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. So there is one more topic I want to cover before we wrap up. But Regina, do you have any comments on that before we move on?
No, just yeah, again, how it's like funny how it can be similar but different. Like for me, like when I was given this like message and revelation of like, you have to appreciate your life and appreciate this body you've been given. Like I'm quoting Ram Dass a little bit, but it's like I have work to do in this body, and doing things like for years where I was like daydreaming about suicide and that, like, it wasn't that I actually wanted to kill myself. It's that it was attention. I wanted somebody to see I was in pain. I didn't know how to express it correctly because I wasn't given the right building blocks to like understand and process things. And then, doing that on your own is extremely hard, and it's very easy to get resentful about that, and I spent my early adulthood and all my 20s essentially is like the most chaotic, I was a pretty terrible person. And now, because it's like fate forced me to look at that and to have to atone for a lot of that, and it's cost me a lot of things that I've loved and still love, but it makes me go, you have to pick up the heaviest burden and bear it, and you have to do as much good as you possibly can and not put any additional suffering into a world that is already full of suffering. Like, suffering is a constant. It's a non-negotiable, in my opinion. And so like now, like with the party and with the Psychedelic Club of Pittsburgh, and just trying to be the healthiest version of myself, and create this personal relationship with God that, like, it doesn't matter like if people believe it or not. Like before, I used to care so much what people think, and it's like I know my truth, and like at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And it just really has made me want to do as much good as possible, and even if that means planting trees that I will never sit in the shade under, it's like that's worth it.
Yeah, that's well said. So I do want to give a quick disclaimer that nothing that's been said on this episode is medical advice nor any specific recommendations. So yeah, I'm glad you all agree. Okay. So
be skeptical. That's the recommendation.
Yeah.
Be skeptical.
Yes. Nor any suggestion to break the law or anything along those lines.
Yeah, please. I'm not condoning to sell, source any of these substances until they are legal, which I'm coming for you, Allegheny County.
Well, actually, since you mentioned it, that was exactly the topic that I wanted to bring up. Now, each of you has mentioned projects that you're working on or events that you've got coming up that are at least relevant to the topics that we've been discussing tonight. So why don't you go first, since you already started on it, Regina?
Yeah. So as some people may or may not know, I am the chair for the Issue Coalitions of the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. And on December 5th, there was a joint effort from Issue Coalitions and legislation, and we brought forth to Allegheny County City Council the entheogenic plant policy that would essentially legalize, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say legalize. it's very tricky with these words, as I'm learning from legislation. It would make prosecuting consumption and possession of all entheogenic plants. So I do want to disclaim that would exclude LSD, any sort of synthesized psychedelic, and we did not include peyote out of respect to indigenous tribes. But it would make it the lowest priority of Pittsburgh police to prosecute that. It would also allow home grow so that people can make sure that they're getting their medicine. They know what it is, and there's no danger, because there's so much goddamn fentanyl going on right now in the city of Pittsburgh. It makes me sick every day. And personally, the only way that you can guarantee you know what you're getting is to learn to cultivate your own safe medicine within the comforts of your home. So we did bring this to Councilman Daniel Lavelle. We're currently still working on the next pieces here. But I'm really hoping that a lot of the Democrats on city council right now have run with the promise of plant medicine in some aspect. And this is something that their voters want. And I really hope that they would listen not only to, our request, but their voters' request, and pass this policy, because it's a step. When we have Representative Tracy Pennysook, she's pushing for not only defend the guard, but for veterans to have access to psilocybin for PTSD. So it's a tripartisan issue, whether some people want to admit that or not. But I really hope people think about that, depending on what decision city council makes when it comes to voting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing the results of that for sure. As we already did something similar in Norristown, and hopefully, if we get Pittsburgh to adopt this, then we could try it in other cities, maybe Philadelphia, perhaps, Torren.
Yeah, possibly. There's some groups here in Philly that are doing a lot of cool work with it. I mean, Decriminalize Nature. I know I've met some of those folks. The chair here in Philly has attended some of their events. There's an awesome guy here, a guy named Ron, who runs a group called the Balanced Veterans Network, which is pushing for plant medicine for veterans. He has an awesome story. He lives not too far from me, and I think he's done some work with the legislators legislators that Regina's mentioned. So hopefully at some point here in Philly, I mean, from what decrim nature tells me, nobody in City Hall actually knows anything about plant medicine here in Philly, which wouldn't surprise me, because it's a bigger city than Pittsburgh with even wackier problems. So
yeah, it's funny because there's a certain city councilwoman, Helen Jim, that just resigned to run for mayor, and she's long been known as the most progressive city councilwoman, definitely in the city, possibly the whole state.
Yeah.
And yet, of all the issues that you could possibly expect a progressive to be good on, you think they'd be good on this, but no.
Yep.
No,
that's kind of how it is.
Care at all.
Yeah. So I don't know too much about all that going on in the city. I do have a couple other things going on.
Yeah, that is what I was going to mention, specifically the event in New Jersey, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I've got a couple of things. I am hosting or emceeing an event over in Hightstown, New Jersey on February 25th called Jersey Nullification.
I will post the link in the chat.
Yeah, it's I think it's njfreedomfest.com.
I posted the Eventbrite link. I'm sure it'll be on there.
Oh yeah. Or go to www.njfreedomfest.com. The New Jersey Libertarian Party, Mises Caucus, Canasense, all the usual suspects over there that do a lot of great events. Like they do some good stuff, a lot of good educational things. They are hosting an event on jury nullification, which is actually related to this, because one of the guests is a big, well-known in the cannabis industry. And the whole thing about jury nullification is that, if a jury thinks that a crime or something that's technically against the law is actually not hurting anybody and hasn't, no real crime has been committed, a jury doesn't have to convict. And so we're going to be hosting an event on that. I'll be the MC. I really don't know all that much about it. I'm just going to be, I was told I have a good radio voice, and so they wanted me to do it.
Well, that's okay, because you could just listen to, I think it was Take Human Action episode 30 when we had Rob Coburn on, and we discussed jury nullification in some detail.
I think, I think he said he's gonna be there. But I'm just gonna be hosting, probably telling some bad jokes. They said I had radio voice, but this is in person. Like, good. Like,
you're not Adam Nutter. I'm sure you'll be fine.
I'm sure. So it should be a good time. It's a free event, totally free. Like I said, it's in Hightstown, New Jersey, so it's about an hour northeast of Philadelphia. It's great people. I mean, I've gotten to know the Jersey people quite a bit. Some of them actually came to my most recent event, which on every second Wednesday of every month, Don't Tread on Philly has a happy hour and kind of get together at the Dive Bar on 7th and Passyunk.
Was it yesterday?
No, it was last Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
So last Wednesday, we filled up the entire second floor of the Dive Bar. We had about 30 people there. It's a great time. I co-host that with Mark Passio of What on Earth is Happening. So, he's got a following. Don't Tread on Philly, made a little bit of a name for itself. And yeah, it's a good time. A lot of people.
I heard Mark was moving. What's the deal?
I think he might be
lives in South Philly forever.
Yeah, he's had an issue, I think, with his lease or something, and so he's looking to buy some property.
Ugh. Wow, that's crazy, because I've always heard he was practically grew out of the potholes of South Philly, so it's crazy to think.
Yeah, I mean, Philly's just it's not a cool place right now, in general. But there's that, and then I'm sure I'll be posting links on social media, but I've got an interview coming up this weekend with something called the Gender Dysphoria Alliance. We're going to be talking about transition and detransition. And really, I mean, with all this stuff, with like psychedelics or even gender dysphoria and mental health, I mean, you could be asking like, okay, so why are we talking about this on the Mises Caucus website? Like, why are we talking about this Mises Caucus podcast? Like, what does this have to do with libertarianism? And, what I would say to that is I think some of the most meaningful things we can do as human beings and taking human action is learning how to be free, in our hearts and minds. If we learn how to be free in our hearts and minds, then no matter what happens externally, if it's the government mandating shots or, taking away our gas stoves or our gas cars or, whatever, whatever comes across us, the freer we are mentally and in our hearts, the better that we can actually respond, not just react, but respond. And in the process, potentially help set other people free, by giving them good examples of what it's like to live free in our hearts and minds. We can inspire other people to do the same. And the more people that we help become free mentally, become free in their hearts, the more likelihood we actually have a chance of changing what's going on externally.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a libertarian issue, even if it doesn't have this like, oh man, let's get the government out of mental health, which we should. Yes, we should.
Yeah.
We should get it out of mental health. We should get it out of gender dysphoria. We should get it out of all kinds of stuff. But it does have a deeper significance, even what we're trying to do as libertarians and free people.
Yeah, well, that's as good a place as any to end it. Well, thank you both. This was a fascinating conversation. I'm looking forward to continuing this at convention, where I'm sure you'll both be. Oh, I'll definitely be there.
I'll be there for part of it, no doubt.
All right, awesome. So where can people follow you, Regina?
So my Twitter handle's below at the LPPA Badger. Again, if you are interested in Rage Against the War Machine rally, about the entheogenic plant policy, or just learning more about the Libertarian Party. I love to talk to people. Like, please message me, and if I don't have the answer, I'll find somebody who does for you.
Right on. Torren?
I'm kind of taking a little bit of a break from social media for the most part, but I'm not deleting anything, so you can follow me personally at TPDNWSK. Tough to remember, I know, but it's my first two initials, my first and middle initial TP, and then my last name without any vowels. And then also Don't Tread on Philly. Follow us at Don't Tread Philly on Twitter. I'll always be posting links to like our get-togethers and whatnot. So yeah. And if you come out to Don't Tread on Philly on a second Wednesday, or the New Jersey, the Jersey nullification event, come up, say hi, let's hang out.
Yep, definitely. I'll have to make it out to. I still need to make it out to Don't Tread on Philly social. And case in point from what we were talking about earlier, Regina, I looked up where the nullification event was happening, and I'm pretty sure it's like 20 minutes from my house.
Yep.
Lucky.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a lot easier for me than Torren, and far easier for Rob. So far easier for me than for Rob. So yeah. You'll practically drive by my house, Torren. So we'll have to
I mean, I've been there. I've been there a few times. I mean, it's way closer to me than this year's LPPA Christmas party was. Like, it's closer to me to go to.
That was far.
I went to the New Jersey Christmas party because it was closer.
Even the Montco party was further for me than the Jersey one was, but I couldn't make any of them anyway. But I think location wise, the Jersey one was still closer.
Oh, I go to Delaware stuff all the time too. I mean, like once a quarter, I try to go down and hang out with the Delaware folks. It's like, this is close. Whereas if LPPA is doing something, it's out in like Harrisburg or bumfuck middle of nowhere. I'm just like,
yeah, come on, guys, what are you doing? Yeah, if we lost the western half of the state and just like annexed New Jersey and Delaware, I could probably get to stuff a lot faster. All right. Before we get any crazy ideas about integrating more blue people into the state, let's sign off. So don't forget to take human action, everyone. Have a good night.
All right. See ya.
Bye, guys.